I watched Sophie's tears drip onto the acceptance letter, a shiny beacon of my supposed future, now rapidly becoming her latest prop. She's practically on her knees, voice trembling as she pleads with Mom. "Oh, Mommy, please!" Sophie wailed, clutching the letter for Winchester University. The one I got into, like it was a holy relic. "You know it's my dream, my only chance. I just need a little help with the tuition, the deposit, everything." It was a command performance, the same one that had spectacularly demolished my life once before. My stomach gave a familiar, sickening lurch. This was the opening act of a tragedy I'd already starred in. The metallic tang of betrayal, acrid and unforgettable, flooded my mouth. It was the exact same taste, the phantom echo from 10 years ago or a lifetime ago, depending on how you looked at Rebirth when I died. Died broke, drowning in debt, degreeless, and utterly alone. All because I'd believed this exact scene, trusted this exact sister and this exact mother. You'd think a do-over, a literal second chance at life, would come with an immunity to repeat train wrecks, but apparently, cosmic irony had a long memory and a sick sense of humor. This time, though, the script had a new writer. Me. This time, an odd, almost serene calmness enveloped me as I watched Sophie's encore. She was truly gifted. The tears flowed like a faucet, her hand protectively, if a tad too dramatically, splayed across her perfectly flat stomach. And there's something else, she choked out, her gaze darting to Mom, then to me, then back to Mom, ensuring maximum audience engagement. I'm pregnant. I don't know how it happened. It was just unexpected, Mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh, Sophie, my poor baby, a baby." Sophie nodded, sniffing pitifully. "I haven't told Michael yet. I'm so scared. I need this university spot, Mom, for the baby's future." And Oscar was truly being wasted here. My sister, the master manipulator, was pulling out all the stops for her unforeseen circumstances gambit. The sheer audacity almost made me want to applaud. Almost. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed, each tick a countdown. The bank would bolt its doors in precisely 6 hours. Both our college tuition payments were due by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Sophie, lost in her melodrama, was blissfully unaware that the game had changed. The stakes were different, and her opponent was no longer a naive pushover. She didn't know that this time I'd already made my choice. A choice that had solidified in my mind the moment I woke up in my 18-year-old body again, the phantom weight of my previous life's failures pressing down on me. No more. That's when I reached into my pocket, my fingers closing around the cool metal of my phone. Smoothly, almost casually, I pulled it out. Sophie was still in full flow, ramping up the pathos. "I know Maya got into Winchester too, Mom, and I know the fund was for her first, but this is an emergency. A baby changes everything. She's smart. She can go to community college or wait a year. Please, Mom, you have to understand." Her voice was a desperate, wheedling whine. Mom was already nodding, tears in her own eyes. "Of course, darling, of course. We'll make it work for you and the baby. Maya will understand." I didn't say a word. I just tapped the screen, the little red recording icon blinking to life. Sophie was now looking directly at Mom, her face a mask of tragic motherhood. "I swear, Mom, I didn't plan this. I wouldn't just invent a baby to get what I want." "Who would do something that horrible?" she blubbered, shaking her head vehemently. "It's real. This baby is real. I even have the test to prove it." She fumbled in her purse, pulling out a small plastic stick. "See?" "Oh, Sophie, I believe you, my sweet girl," Mom cooed, reaching for her. "It's just, Michael's been so distant," Sophie continued, her voice cracking. "I'm terrified he'll leave me when I tell him. This Winchester acceptance, this education, it's the only thing that can give me and my baby a secure future if he does. You see that, don't you? Maya has other options. She always lands on her feet." I don't." Her eyes, glistening with unshed tears, found mine for a moment. A flicker of something, triumph, pleading? It was hard to tell through the performance. I just kept recording, my expression unreadable. The lens was capturing every tear, every heartfelt lie, Every perfectly crafted falsehood about the non-existent baby and the conveniently positive and undoubtedly fake pregnancy test she was now waving around. The timer was still ticking, but for the first time, it felt like it was ticking in my favor. The little red light on my phone blinked, a silent witness to Sophie's award-winning monologue of deceit. I let her go on for another few minutes, enough to get a solid 5 minutes of her Emmy-worthy performance, complete with the brandishing of the fake pregnancy test and tearful pleas for my future. Then, with a subtle click, I stopped the recording and slipped the phone back into my pocket. Sophie was still dabbing her eyes, Mom still cooing sympathetically. Neither of them noticed. I didn't stick around for the curtain call or the inevitable encore. Without a word, I turned on my heel and walked out of the living room, leaving the tableau of familial betrayal steaming behind me. The front door clicked shut with a satisfying finality. The walk to the downtown branch of Sterling Mutual Bank was brisk, fueled by 10 years of simmering resentment and the exhilarating taste of impending justice. Each step on the cracked pavement felt like reclaiming a piece of my stolen past. The air, usually thick with city exhaust, seemed crisp and clean for once. Or maybe that was just the sweet smell of proactive self-preservation. Inside the bank, the cool, conditioned air was a stark contrast to the heated drama at home. There wasn't much of a line, thank goodness. The teller, a young guy with a name tag that read, "Kevin, happy to help," looked mildly surprised when I, an 18-year-old, asked to withdraw the entire contents of my college savings account, a not insignificant 5-figure sum, and then immediately redeposited into a brand new account under my name only, with explicit instructions that no one else, family or otherwise, could access it without my direct, in-person authorization and a blood sample. Okay, maybe not the blood sample, but the rest was ironclad. Kevin just typed, occasionally raising an eyebrow. "Setting up some robust security, huh?" he'd remarked. "You could say that," I'd replied, my voice betraying none of the turmoil or triumph churning within. "Just like to keep my assets secure." The process took about 20 minutes. 20 minutes of delicious, quiet rebellion. He handed me the new account paperwork and, more importantly, the withdrawal receipt from the old joint account. That little slip of paper felt heavier than a gold bar. It was my declaration of independence. Back home, the waterworks had apparently subsided, replaced by an air of smug satisfaction from Sophie and anxious hovering from Mom. They were in the kitchen, Sophie probably already mentally spending my money, Mom likely brewing her a calming cup of you-deserve-it-all tea. I walked straight up to Mom, the withdrawal receipt held between my thumb and forefinger. I didn't say a word, just handed it to her. Her brow furrowed as she took it. "What's this, dear? A deposit slip for Sophie's tuition?" I almost laughed. "Not quite, Mom." My voice was calm, dangerously so. "That's a withdrawal receipt. I took my entire college fund out of the joint account. It's in a new one now. One Sophie can't touch. One you can't touch." Mom's eyes widened, the receipt trembling in her hand. Sophie, who had been smirking from the kitchen table, suddenly looked up, her expression freezing. "Maya, what on earth are you talking about?" Mom finally stammered, her voice a mix of confusion and dawning horror. Your college fund? But Sophie needs that. For Winchester, for the baby." "You gave her my money last time, Mom," I said, my voice flat, each word carefully chosen, a tiny little dagger. "Every single cent. And because of that, in my last life, I died with nothing. No degree, no career, no future. Broke, alone, and working 3 dead-end jobs just to keep from starving. That's not happening again, not this time around." Mom stared at me, her face paling. "Last life? Maya, what are you saying? You're scaring me. Are you feeling all right, dear? Did something happen?" Sophie scoffed from the table. "She's just being dramatic, Mom. Jealous as usual. She can't stand it when I get something good." "Jealous?" I turned to Sophie, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. "Oh, sweetie, if only you knew. This isn't about jealousy. This is about consequences." Mom wrung her hands. "Maya, please. This isn't like you. Sophie needs that money. She's pregnant. We have to support her." "Did you support me, Mom?" I asked quietly. "When I came to you, desperate, after Sophie had drained everything? Or did you tell me to be more understanding of her needs? The memory was still so vivid, her dismissive wave, her tired sigh as if I were the burden. Mom crumpled a little, the fight seeping out of her. She looked from me to Sophie, then back to the damning withdrawal slip in her hand. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, as if admitting a terrible secret. Maya, there's something you don't understand. It's not all there anyway. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, and why is that, Mom? She took a deep breath. Sophie. Well, she needed a few things, a little advance. She was so stressed about getting into Winchester, the pressure. A few things? I pressed, my voice still dangerously calm. What kind of things? Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Well, there was that lovely Chanel bag she saw. It was an investment piece, really. And that little trip to Cabo with her friends last month? She said it was a networking opportunity for after she graduated. She was going to pay it all back, of course, once she got her high-powered job after Winchester. Her words tumbled out, a pathetic stream of excuses. She figured the pregnancy story would make it easier to explain the, temporary shortfall. She swore she didn't think you'd check the balance so soon, Maya. I stared at her, speechless for a moment. Half. Sophie had already blown through half of my college fund on designer crap and a Mexican vacation, all before she'd even faked the pregnancy to secure the rest. The sheer, unadulterated gall of it was breathtaking. So let me get this straight, I said slowly, my voice dripping with sarcasm. My sister, the master financial planner, preemptively spent my future on handbags and holidays, and her brilliant plan was to use a fake baby to guilt-trip me and you into covering her theft. It wasn't theft, Maya, Mom protested weakly. She was always going to tell us, and she was going to pay it back. Right, I said, just like she paid back the money for her emergency wisdom tooth surgery that turned out to be a nose job 10 years ago. Or the startup capital for her artisanal cupcake business that lasted 2 weeks and funded a new wardrobe. My patience, already thinner than Sophie's excuses, was wearing dangerously thin. The grandfather clock chimed again. 3 o'clock. My gaze drifted to the academic calendar I'd pinned on the fridge weeks ago, the one with all the important university deadlines circled in red. Sophie's tuition payment for Winchester University, the one she was banking on using my money for, was due by 5 p.m. today. The bursar's office closed then. Sharp. No extensions, no sob stories, not even for a supposedly pregnant, Chanel-toting, Cabo-tanned, aspiring student. That gave her exactly 2 hours to magically manifest a very large sum of money. Tick, tock, Sophie. The sound of my sister's carefully constructed world beginning to crumble was almost as satisfying as the crisp new bank book tucked safely in my bag. This was going to be an interesting afternoon. 2 hours. The clock was ticking loud and clear, at least in my head. I could have stayed home, savored Mom's bewildered sputtering and Sophie's impending financial doom from a comfortable distance. But where's the fun in that? Call it morbid curiosity, call it a desire for a front-row seat to the implosion I'd engineered, but I found myself walking towards Sophie's apartment. It wasn't far, a small, trendy place Mom had co-signed for naturally. I wondered if she'd try to hit Mom up for another loan, or perhaps attempt a dramatic, tearful reconciliation with Michael, the non-existent baby's non-existent father. The possibilities for fresh drama were endless. I let myself in with the spare key Mom insisted I keep for emergencies, she'd said. I guess this qualified. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Acrid smoke. Like a bonfire of bad decisions. And there she was. My darling sister, Sophie, was crouched in front of her stylish, and probably debt-financed, stainless steel fireplace, frantically feeding papers into a struggling flame. Her usually perfect blonde hair was a mess. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. A genuine meltdown this time, no crocodile tears in sight. Her phone was clamped between her shoulder and ear, and her voice was a high-pitched whine of desperation. Uncle James, please, you don't understand. It's an absolute emergency. My whole future is on the line. Just a loan, a tiny one. I swear I'm good for it. A pause, then, no, Mom can't. Well, she's trying, but it's complicated. This is for Winchester, my education. Think of the family honor. She was actually playing the family honor card. Rich, considering the honor she was currently trying to incinerate. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her feed what looked suspiciously like a sonogram picture, probably downloaded from the internet, into the flames. It sizzled and curled into black ash. Next went a few sheets that looked like doctor's letterhead. Please, Uncle James, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't life or death, just $20,000 for the deposit. They need it today in like an hour. Her voice cracked. You've always been so generous. Remember that time you helped Dad with his business venture? Oh, she was pulling out the ancient history guilt trips now. Classy. What do you mean, which one? She shrieked, then quickly modulated. No, of course you're right. But this is me, your favorite niece. Sophie. She listened for a moment, her face falling. What do you mean you'll think about it and call Mom to discuss? There's no time. I need it now. She finally slammed the phone down with a frustrated scream, scattering ashes from the fireplace. That's when she saw me. Her eyes, wild and bloodshot, narrowed. You. What are you doing here? Come to gloat? Gloat? I asked, feigning innocence as I strolled further into the room, careful to avoid the small pile of still smoldering paper. Perish the thought. Just came to see how Winchester's most promising, albeit momentarily financially embarrassed, new student was doing. Burning the midnight oil, I see, or is that just your future going up in smoke? Sophie scrambled to her feet, wiping at her tear-stained face with the back of her hand. Get out, Maya. This is none of your business. Oh, but I think it is, I said, my voice dangerously pleasant. Especially since my college fund was supposed to be your ticket. And your performance this morning? The one about the unexpected baby? Truly inspired. Meryl Streep would have been proud. In fact, it was so good, I made sure to get a copy. I patted my pocket where my phone rested. Her eyes widened, a new kind of fear dawning in them, colder and sharper than the panic about the money. A copy? What are you talking about? A recording, Sophie, dear, I clarified, enjoying the way the color drained from her face. Audio and video, your whole sob story. Every last I wouldn't fake a baby lie. Crystal clear. It's amazing what modern phones can do, isn't it? She stared at me, speechless for a moment, the frantic energy visibly deflating, replaced by a venomous fury. You recorded me? She finally hissed, her voice trembling. You psycho! That's illegal. Is it? I mused. More illegal than, say, attempted fraud? Defrauding our mother, defrauding a university, faking medical documents? I gestured towards the fireplace, because those little bonfire marshmallows looked pretty official. Sophie's composure snapped. You give me that recording, Maya, she shrieked, lunging towards me. I sidestepped her easily. She was never the athletic one. If you don't, I swear I'll tell everyone you're having a complete mental breakdown, that you're delusional. Who do you think they'll believe, huh? Me, the grieving mother-to-be, or you, the bitter, jealous little sister who's always been a bit off? You think Uncle James will believe your sob story when he hears you admitting the pregnancy is fake? I countered, my voice calm but laced with steel. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over the play button for the video file I'd already queued up. Want a sneak preview? I particularly like the part where you swear on Nona's grave that you wouldn't invent a baby. Solid gold, that bit. Sophie's eyes darted to the phone, then back to my face, her bravado faltering. You wouldn't dare, she whispered, but there was no conviction in it. You're just jealous I'm the pretty one. The one everyone always liked more. Ah, the classic deflection. When all else fails, resort to playground insults. Oh, Sophie, I sighed, a theatrical display of pity. Is that really all you've got? The pretty one? Honey, your looks might get you a free drink at a bar, but they won't get you out of this. Try me. I have nothing left to lose, remember? I already lived that life. This time, I'm playing for keeps. I held her gaze, unwavering. A long, tense silence stretched between us, broken only by the crackle of the dying embers in the fireplace and the frantic, ignored buzzing of Sophie's phone on the coffee table. She knew I wasn't bluffing. The desperation in her eyes was slowly being eclipsed by a cold, hard rage. Fine, she spat, her voice low and venomous. Keep your stupid recording. But when I get that money from Uncle James, and I will get it, you'll never see a single penny for your own education. You'll end up, just like you said, broke and worthless. And I'll be laughing all the way to my graduation. Bold words for someone whose primary funding source is currently ghosting her, I said, gesturing towards the still buzzing phone. But you do you, sis. We'll see who's laughing in the end. The apartment reeked of burnt paper and desperation, a perfume of Sophie's own making. Her phone continued its relentless buzzing on the coffee table, each vibration a tiny punctuation mark in her downfall. She finally snatched it up, her thumb jabbing at the screen. Damn it, she yelled, throwing it onto the sofa. Aunt Carol says no chance after the timeshare fiasco. Uncle Mike says he's not a bank. What the hell is wrong with this family? No loyalty. She paced the small living room like a caged animal, her earlier panic giving way to a bitter, impotent fury. Text after text apparently delivered bad news. It seemed word of her financial irresponsibility and perhaps her penchant for dramatic, costly lies had made the rounds with our extended family long before today. Her carefully constructed web of deceit was unraveling thread by thread, and all I had to do was stand back and watch. The 2-hour deadline was shrinking fast, and Sophie's options were disappearing even faster. Sophie was still ranting about the injustice of uncooperative relatives and the crushing disappointment of having to potentially face consequences for her actions when a firm knock echoed from the apartment door. We both froze. Sophie's eyes, already wide with panic and fury, darted towards the entrance like a cornered animal. "Who is that?" she hissed, voice trembling. "Did you call someone? Did you call the cops?" "Relax, drama queen," I said, though my own heart gave a curious flutter. The only crime here is against good taste, and sadly, that's not illegal. I glanced at the peephole. My eyebrows shot up. Well, well, speak of the devil and he shall appear, or at least send his most discerning representative. I opened the door. Standing there, looking immensely displeased and holding a crisp bank envelope, was Uncle James. Our mother's older brother, a man of few words but significant financial clout, and a notoriously low tolerance for nonsense. His stern gaze swept past me to land on Sophie, who was attempting to simultaneously look innocent and tragic, a feat not even her advanced acting skills could quite manage amidst the smoky aroma and tear-streaked face. "Uncle James!" Sophie cried, rushing forward with an attempt at a relieved hug. "Oh, thank goodness you're here. I was just calling you. There's been a terrible misunderstanding, and I desperately need your help for Winchester." Uncle James deftly sidestepped her embrace, his expression unyielding. "Sophie," he said, his voice a low rumble that promised no easy ride, "I believe we need to have a chat. Maya, may I come in?" "Be my guest, Uncle," I said, stepping aside with a small, almost imperceptible smirk. This was getting better than cable. He walked into the living room, his eyes taking in the smoldering remnants in the fireplace, the general chaos, and Sophie's disheveled appearance. He didn't comment, just radiated disapproval. "I spoke to your mother, Sophie," he began, his voice dangerously calm. "She was distraught, mentioned something about a baby, and a rather urgent need for tuition money for Winchester." Sophie nodded eagerly, clasping her hands together. "Yes, exactly. Oh, Uncle, it's been such a stressful time. This baby, it was a surprise, but a blessing, of course. And Winchester is my dream, my chance to provide for my child." Uncle James listened patiently, his gaze unwavering. "A surprise, you say? Tell me, Sophie, does Michael Chen know about this surprise blessing?" He used her ex-boyfriend's full name, Michael Chen, the same one she'd mentioned in her earlier performance for Mom. It was a pointed question. Sophie faltered for a split second. "Michael, well, not yet. I wanted to get things settled with Winchester first, you know? Secure our future before worrying him." "I see," Uncle James said, his tone unreadable. He then turned to me. "Maya, your mother also mentioned you emptied your joint college fund this morning." "I moved my money into a personal account, yes," I confirmed, "for safekeeping. And she said you were saying some Rather alarming things about past lives, about dying. His eyes held a flicker of concern, but also a keen, analytical intelligence. Before I could answer, Sophie jumped in. She's not well, Uncle James. She's been saying crazy things all day. She's trying to sabotage me because she's jealous. She made up this whole story about me faking the pregnancy. Can you imagine? She even managed to squeeze out a fresh tear. She even recorded me trying to twist my words. Uncle James looked at Sophie, then back at me. He was silent for a long moment, the tension in the room thickening. Then, he did something unexpected. He extended the bank envelope he was holding not to Sophie, but to me. Maya, he said, his voice softening slightly. I believe this belongs to you. I took the envelope, confused. What is it? It's a cashier's check for the full amount of your original college fund, plus a little extra for your troubles, and to cover any immediate fees for a good therapist, should you choose to see one after all this family drama. He actually looked a little sheepish saying the last part. Sophie gasped, her jaw dropping. What? For her? But I'm the one who's pregnant. I'm the one going to Winchester. Uncle James, what are you doing? Uncle James finally turned his full, icy attention back to Sophie. Actually, Sophie, you're not pregnant. And you won't be attending Winchester unless they've suddenly introduced a curriculum in advanced theatrical deceit. The air went out of Sophie like a punctured tire. What? What are you talking about? She whispered, her face ashen. Michael Chen called me about an hour ago, Sophie, Uncle James stated, his voice flat and devoid of sympathy. He was rather upset. Apparently, you'd been telling mutual friends about your miracle pregnancy and how you were counting on it to secure family funding for Winchester after he, and I quote, wisely dumped you last month for being a manipulative, compulsive liar. Ouch. Direct hit. He also mentioned you tried to get him to play along with the pregnancy charade in exchange for a cut of whatever money you scammed from the family. He provided me with some rather illuminating text messages you sent him. Screenshots, to be precise. Quite detailed ones about your little scheme, including your plans to guilt-trip Mom and hit up the uncles. My jaw was now on the floor, metaphorically speaking. Michael, the often clueless jock ex-boyfriend, had come through with an unexpected MVP play. I almost felt like sending him a thank you card. Sophie looked like she'd been slapped. Michael, he wouldn't, she stammered, her eyes darting around wildly as if seeking an escape route that didn't exist. He's lying. He's just bitter because I broke up with him. Is he, Sophie? Uncle James countered, his voice like ice. His story, complete with your own incriminating texts, aligns perfectly with Maya's withdrawal of her funds this morning, her talk of being betrayed, and the rather suspicious bonfire you have going there. What exactly were you burning, niece? Evidence, perhaps. He gestured to the fireplace. Michael also informed me that your acceptance to Winchester was, in fact, conditional, and that you'd already missed several prerequisite payments and document submissions. The deadline for final, unconditional acceptance with full payment was, indeed, 5 p.m. today. A deadline you clearly have no intention or capability of meeting honestly. Sophie sank onto the sofa, defeated, the fight completely gone. She didn't even try to deny it anymore. She just stared blankly ahead, the ashes of her brilliant plan metaphorically settling around her. The funds I just gave Maya, Uncle James continued, his voice now a bit gentler as he looked at me, are hers to do with as she pleases. For her education, preferably. Sophie, he turned back to her, his tone hardening again. You will be moving out of this apartment by the end of the month. Your mother will not be co-signing any more leases, nor will she be funding your lifestyle. You will get a job, a real one. And you will start paying back your mother for the money you've already squandered. Am I clear? Sophie just nodded numbly, tears silently tracing paths through her smudged mascara. As for a family honor, Uncle James added, his gaze sweeping over both of us, it's built on integrity, Sophie, not on lies and manipulation. Maya, I am truly sorry you've had to endure this. Your mother and I will be having a long talk. Perhaps it's time for some recalibration within this family. He gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture of respect that meant more than any amount of money. Then, with a final disappointed look at Sophie, he turned and left the apartment, the click of the door echoing in the sudden, heavy silence. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. Sophie was a crumpled heap on the couch. I stood there, the bank envelope heavy in my hand, the knowledge of Uncle James's intervention and Michael's unexpected whistleblowing sinking in. It was a reversal so complete, so utterly decimating to Sophie's plans, that it almost felt like divine intervention. Or at least the intervention of a ticked-off ex-boyfriend with a conscience and a wealthy uncle who'd finally had enough. My mind, however, wasn't on Sophie's immediate tear-soaked misery. It drifted. In my last life, at this exact juncture, I was the one broken, watching Sophie sail off to her bright future, funded by my sacrifice. But this time was different. A new scene began to play in my head, vivid and clear. In 3 months, I saw myself standing tall, a cap on my head, a gown flowing around me. It would be my high school graduation, a milestone I'd barely registered in my previous despair-filled timeline where college was already a pipe dream. I'd have that diploma in my hand, earned, real. And the college fund Uncle James had just restored? That was my ticket to what came next, a future I would build myself on my own terms. And Sophie? The vision shifted. I saw her, not in cap and gown from Winchester, but in a drab uniform, her face tight with resentment as she served lukewarm coffee at some generic cafe, the scent of burnt espresso clinging to her. The designer bags would be long gone, sold to cover the first wave of credit card debt Uncle James would undoubtedly ensure she started repaying. The Cabo tan would fade, replaced by the pale, indoor complexion of someone working long hours for minimum wage. There would be no trust fund, baby, no high-powered career built on lies, just the slow, grinding reality of adulting without a safety net woven from deceit. It wasn't a vision born of malice, not exactly. It was just the natural outcome. Cause and effect. Choices and consequences. The universe. Or perhaps just Uncle James and a scorned ex, course-correcting with a vengeance. I looked over at Sophie. She was still crying, soft, hopeless little sounds. Part of me, a tiny, conditioned part from a lifetime of being her sister, almost felt a twinge of something. Pity. No, not quite. Maybe just a detached acknowledgement of her utter self-destruction. But the overwhelming feeling was relief. And a burgeoning sense of freedom. I didn't gloat. There was no need. The universe, with a helpful nudge from a few key players, had done it for me. Her current misery was a direct result of her own actions, her own greed, her own endless, entitled manipulations. I had simply refused to be a casualty this time around. Instead of dwelling on her downfall, my mind was already racing ahead, planning my ascent. Winchester, the university that had been the catalyst for so much drama, now felt tainted. Besides, I had a new appreciation for starting fresh, for building something genuinely mine, without the shadow of Sophie's interference or Mom's misguided favoritism. The money from Uncle James was a gift, a fresh start, but I wasn't about to get complacent. I wanted something practical, something that would allow me to be independent, truly independent. I pulled out my phone, the same one that held Sophie's 5-star confession. The irony wasn't lost on me. I opened a browser and typed, "Community colleges with good night programs plus transfer agreements to state universities." My fingers flew across the screen, scrolling through options, tuition fees, course catalogs. Metro Community College looked promising. They had a decent business administration program, flexible evening classes that would let me find a day job, and solid articulation agreements with the state university system. No prestige, maybe, not like Winchester, but it felt real, honest, achievable. A foundation I could build stone by stone without anyone trying to yank it out from under me. I could work, save, learn. Maybe even find a mentor, someone like that Dr. Webb mentioned in their faculty bios. A professor with actual industry experience, not just academic theories. The thought of it, the sheer, unadulterated possibility, sent a thrill through me that no acceptance letter from a prestigious university ever had. This wasn't just about surviving. It was about finally, truly starting to live my own life, my own terms. And this time, no one was going to take it from me. The decision to enroll at Metro Community College felt like the first truly clean breath I'd taken in 2 lifetimes. There were no ghosts of Sophie's manipulations there, no echoes of Mom's misguided sacrifices. Just a straightforward application process, a helpful online advisor who didn't bat an eye at my slightly unconventional gap in formal schooling from my last disastrous attempt at adulting, and a schedule of night classes that would let me earn my keep during the day. I signed up for Intro to Business, English Comp, and a basic accounting course. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. My first day job, secured after a whirlwind of applications, was at a bustling downtown bookstore called The Daily Grind, a place that ironically sold more coffee than books. It paid enough to cover my share of a tiny studio apartment I planned to find, far, far away from the familial battlefield. But before I could truly close the door on the past, there was one more piece of unfinished business: Sophie's conditional acceptance at Winchester University. Uncle James had laid out the truth of her academic standing, or lack thereof. But universities have processes. And while her lack of funds would eventually derail her, I felt a certain obligation to ensure the full picture was clear to the admissions board. Call it a public service. I drafted a polite, concise email to the Winchester University Dean of Admissions. Subject: information regarding applicant Sophie Chen, potential misrepresentation. Dear Dean Miller, I am writing to provide information regarding an applicant, Miss Sophie Chen, who I understand has a conditional acceptance to your esteemed institution. I have recently come into possession of evidence, including a video recording, wherein Miss Chen openly discusses fabricating a pregnancy and falsifying related medical information in an attempt to secure financial support and preferential treatment for her enrollment. She specifically mentions using this fabricated situation to appeal for tuition funds that were not hers and acknowledges the deception involved. I believe this constitutes a serious breach of academic integrity and potentially fraudulent representation. I have attached the aforementioned video file for your review. I trust you will take appropriate action to uphold the standards of Winchester University. Sincerely, Maya Chen. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. It wasn't about revenge, not entirely. It was about ensuring that Sophie couldn't just lie her way into another prestigious opportunity, potentially taking a spot from someone who actually deserved it, someone who hadn't built their application on a foundation of deceit. 3 days later, a crisp, formal email landed in my inbox from Winchester. It was brief. Miss Sophie Chen's conditional offer of admission had been rescinded due to findings of gross misrepresentation and attempted fraud. The second strike had landed, clean and decisive. I didn't feel a surge of triumph, just a quiet sense of order being restored. Some messes just need to be thoroughly cleaned up. Apparently, Sophie didn't appreciate my tidiness. 2 days after Winchester officially gave her the boot, and I presumed a few days into Uncle James's financial lockdown, she found me. It was a busy afternoon at The Daily Grind. I was juggling a complicated latte order and trying to explain to a customer that, no, we didn't stock rare 18th century botanical prints, when the bell above the door jingled with furious intensity. And there she was, a Category 5 Hurricane Sophie, her face a mask of purple rage, hair looking like she'd wrestled a badger and lost. "Maya Chen!" she shrieked, her voice echoing through the normally hushed atmosphere of the bookstore cafe. Head snapped up. My boss, Mr. Henderson, a kindly, balding man who usually radiated calm, looked up from his paperwork with alarm. "You conniving, backstabbing little witch, you ruined my life!" I calmly placed the half-made latte on the counter. "Sophie," I said, my voice even, "I believe you're mistaken. You seem to be doing a fine job of that all by yourself. And perhaps you could lower your voice? Some people are trying to read about things other than your personal dramas." Her eyes blazed. "Don't you dare talk down to me. You got me kicked out of Winchester. That was my future. My only future." "Your future built on lies and a fake pregnancy?" I countered, keeping my tone reasonable despite the audience. "I simply provided the university with some pertinent facts they seem to have overlooked. It's called accountability, Sophie. You should look it up. We probably even have a dictionary somewhere in aisle 3. A few customers tittered. Sophie's face got even darker. You did this to destroy me, she screamed, spittle flying. You've always been jealous of me, always. Mr. Henderson was now making his way over, looking deeply uncomfortable. Miss, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down or leave. Stay out of this, you old goat. Sophie snapped at him, then turned back to me. She's a liar, a manipulative little snake. She's trying to ruin my family. Sophie, I said, my voice firm now, you're making a scene. You need to leave. You destroyed your own life with your lies, Sophie, I stated, my voice cutting through her tirade, clear and steady despite the tremor of adrenaline. I was aware of the curious and shocked faces of customers, the worried frown of Mr. Henderson. I just stopped you from destroying mine too, again. Sophie's eyes narrowed, venom dripping from her words. Mom will choose me over you just like always. She'll never forgive you for this. You'll see. You'll come crawling back and we'll all laugh. A sad little smile touched my lips. She already has chosen Sophie. Many, many times. That's why I'm finally choosing myself. The memory of Mom, so quick to believe Sophie's pregnancy lie, so quick to dismiss my past pain, was a fresh wound, but it no longer crippled me. It fueled me. You'll fail without the family money, Maya, Sophie sneered, her voice laced with a desperate, ugly certainty. You always were the weak one. You need us. You can't do anything on your own. Weak? I almost laughed. The irony was thicker than the unsold poetry anthologies. I survived a life you and Mom systematically dismantled. I came back from the dead, for crying out loud, and I'm still standing here, building something real, while your world of illusion is crashing down around your ears. Who's the weak one, Sophie? I held her gaze, letting her see the steel that had replaced the fear. I don't need the family money because I have something you'll never understand. Integrity. And a recording of you admitting to fraud. So I think I'll be just fine. I turned to Mr. Henderson. I apologize for this disruption, Mr. Henderson. My sister was just leaving. Sophie looked like she wanted to explode, but something in my eyes, some final, unbreakable resolve must have registered. She opened her mouth, then closed it, sputtering silently. With one last murderous glare, she spun on her heel and stormed out, the bell clanging violently in her wake. The silence she left behind was heavy, broken only by Mr. Henderson clearing his throat. Well, Maya, he said, adjusting his glasses, that was quite something. Are you all right? Peachy, I said, offering a small, reassuring smile. Just family, you know. He nodded slowly, still looking a bit stunned. The customers gradually went back to their books and coffees, though I could feel their curious glances for the rest of my shift. It didn't matter. Sophie's power over me was broken. The following Monday, I walked into my first night class at Metro Community College, a battered notebook and a hopeful heart my only companions. It felt good. Right. The classroom was a motley crew of ages and backgrounds, all there with a purpose. Meanwhile, Sophie had until Friday to vacate the apartment Mom had been paying for. Uncle James had been firm on that. I heard through the grapevine, a reluctant, guilt-ridden call from Mom, that Sophie was alternating between raging tantrums and pathetic pleas, trying to find a friend, any friend, who'd take her in. Apparently, her fan club had thinned out considerably once the money tap was turned off and her Winchester dream publicly imploded. The timer was still ticking, but now it was all for Sophie. My own clock had just been reset, and this time, I was the one winding it. 2 years. 2 years of juggling night classes at Metro Community College with a series of day jobs, from the Daily Grind bookstore to a slightly more soul-crushing data entry gig, and finally, to a surprisingly engaging part-time position as an assistant at a small architectural firm. 2 years of ramen noodles, reheated coffee, and textbooks splayed open under dim lamplight while the city slept. 2 years of slowly, painstakingly rebuilding a life from the ashes of the old one. And it all led to this. The slightly stuffy, echoey gymnasium of Metro Community College, filled with the proud families and beaming faces of the graduating class. My graduating class. I was getting my associate's degree in business administration, summa cum laude no less. It wasn't Winchester, but damn, it felt a million times better. It felt earned. I adjusted the slightly too large cap on my head, a grin plastered on my face as I scanned the cheering crowd for Mrs. Rodriguez, my sweet elderly neighbor who'd promised to come take pictures with her ancient Polaroid. And then I saw them. My smile didn't just falter, it crashed and burned. Standing near the back, looking entirely out of place and utterly miserable, were Sophie and Mom. Both were dressed head to toe in black. Not chic, elegant black, but drab, ill-fitting, funeral director black. It was so comically inappropriate, so performatively mournful that a hysterical laugh almost bubbled up. Were they attending a graduation or a wake? Given it was my achievement, probably the latter in their minds. Mom had a hesitant, watery smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Sophie looked like she'd swallowed a hornet then chased it with lemon juice. Her gaze was fixed on me, a burning pinpoint of resentment. So much for a drama-free celebration. I guess some sequels are just inevitable, no matter how much you wish the franchise would end. My fellow graduate, a cheerful woman named Brenda, nudged me. "Friend of yours?" she whispered, nodding towards the funereal duo. Or did someone mistake this for a casting call for a goth convention? I just shook my head, a weary sigh escaping me. "Family," I muttered. Long story. The ceremony droned on. Speeches, awards, the endless parade of names. Finally, Maya Chen, summa cum laude. My name echoed, and a genuine surge of pride, fierce and bright, washed away the momentary irritation. I walked across the stage, shook Dean Abernathy's hand, accepted my diploma, and beamed at Mrs. Rodriguez, who was waving frantically, Polaroid flashing. As I stepped down, basking in the applause and the sense of accomplishment, a familiar, grating voice cut through the celebratory buzz. "Well, isn't that just precious?" Sophie drawled, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear as I approached the area where guests were mingling with graduates. She and Mom had somehow materialized right in my path. A degree from Metro. How quaint. "Sophie!" Mom hissed, tugging at her arm, her face flushed. "Don't start!" But Sophie was like a shark smelling blood in the water. Or, in her case, smelling an opportunity to belittle. "This pathetic degree means nothing, Maya," she continued, her voice dripping with scorn, her eyes sweeping over my cap and gown with disdain. "A piece of paper from a glorified trade school. You're still a failure compared to me, no matter what little diploma you wave around." The air crackled. A few nearby conversations died down as people turned to stare. My fleeting joy curdled into a familiar, weary anger. "Really, Sophie? This is the time and place you choose for this?" "Sophie, stop!" Mom pleaded, her voice tight with embarrassment and a hint of her old exasperation. "She worked 3 jobs for this. She studied every night. Show some respect." For a second, I was almost touched by Mom's defense, however feeble. It was a rare sighting, like a unicorn that also did your taxes. Sophie just scoffed, shaking off Mom's hand. "Respect? For what? For taking the easy way out? At least I didn't have to record my own sister, stab my family in the back, and commit fraud to get ahead in life." My jaw tightened. The hypocrisy was breathtaking, even for her. "No, Sophie," I shot back, my voice dangerously calm. "You just had to lie about being pregnant, try to steal my college fund again, burn fake medical documents in your fireplace, and get yourself spectacularly expelled from your elite university for actual fraud. So please tell me more about getting ahead honestly." Her face paled, then flushed a dangerous red. "I never stole anything. That money was always meant for the successful daughter, the one with actual potential, not the charity case." A ripple of gasps went through our impromptu audience. Even Mom looked horrified by that particular salvo. I, however, felt a strange sense of calm. She was just proving my point with every venomous word. "Really? The successful daughter?" I asked, raising an eyebrow, my voice carrying a deliberate, mocking lilt. "Then why, pray tell, are you here, dressed like you're mourning the death of taste, watching the unsuccessful one graduate summa cum laude from a program she completed in 2 years while holding down multiple jobs? Where's your cap and gown, Sophie?" "Oh, wait." I tapped my chin thoughtfully. "Still pending, is it? Or did the successful daughter's career path take an unexpected detour through— what was it last I heard? assistant manager at a fast fashion outlet in the outlet mall that smells faintly of despair and cinnamon pretzels? Sophie looked like she wanted to physically attack me. Her hands were clenched, her knuckles white. Mom was muttering, "Girls, please, not here. Everyone is watching." Just as Sophie opened her mouth to deliver what I was sure would be another volley of poorly thought out insults, a warm hand landed on my shoulder. I turned to see Dr. Marcus Webb, my favorite business ethics professor, a man whose dry wit and incisive wisdom had been a beacon during many late-night study sessions. He was beaming, his usually serious face crinkled into a proud smile. "Maya, congratulations," he said, his voice cutting smoothly through the tense atmosphere. "Summa cum laude. I knew you had it in you from that very first brilliant, if slightly terrifying essay on corporate whistleblowing." He then seemed to notice the tableau me, a fuming Sophie, a mortified mom. He raised an eyebrow almost imperceptibly. "Am I interrupting something?" "Not at all, Dr. Webb," I said, turning my back pointedly on Sophie and Mom. "Just some distant relatives offering their unique brand of congratulations." "Ah," he said, with a knowing smile. "Well, in that case, perhaps I can offer a slightly more conventional, and hopefully more welcome, form of felicitation." He held out a thick, official-looking envelope. "This arrived for you at my office yesterday, from the State University Admissions Board." My heart skipped a beat. I'd applied, of course, hoping my grades would be enough. I reached for it, my fingers trembling slightly. "My transfer application?" "More than that, Maya," Dr. Webb said, his eyes twinkling. He leaned in conspiratorially. "Open it. But perhaps—" He glanced over my shoulder at Sophie, whose face was now a mask of confused fury. "You might want to take a step or two away from the potential splash zone of envy." I couldn't help but grin. I took the envelope and tore it open. Inside was a heavy, cream-colored letter. My eyes scanned the first few lines. "Dear Miss Chen, we are delighted to inform you of your acceptance into the Bachelor of Science in Business Administration program at State University. Furthermore, the admissions board was so profoundly impressed by your application, particularly your personal essay detailing your journey of overcoming significant familial adversity and your commitment to ethical conduct." My breath hitched. "That we are pleased to offer you the President's Achievement Scholarship, covering full tuition, fees, and a stipend for living expenses for the duration of your undergraduate studies." Full scholarship, State University. My essay, about family betrayal, the one I'd poured all my pain, all my resolve, all my hard-won lessons into, the one I'd almost been too scared to submit. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the words. These weren't tears of anger or frustration. These were tears of pure, unadulterated triumph. "Oh my God," I whispered, looking up at Dr. Webb, who was positively beaming. I don't believe it." "Believe it, Maya," he said warmly. "Your story, your resilience, your intellect, it resonated deeply. You earned this, every bit of it. They even specifically mentioned your insights on ethical decision-making under pressure. Turns out, living through a real-life case study has its advantages." He winked. "You're going to do great things, Maya. I have absolutely no doubt." I clutched the letter to my chest, the paper a tangible symbol of a future I'd carved out for myself, against all odds, against all expectations. A future that was suddenly brighter and more expansive than I'd ever dared to dream. I turned then, slowly, to face Sophie and Mom. Mom looked stunned, her hand over her mouth. A flicker of something unreadable. Pride? Regret? In her tear-filled eyes. But Sophie's face was a study in slow-motion demolition. The sneer, the contempt, the arrogant certainty. It all just crumbled. Her jaw, which had been set in a belligerent line, went slack. Her eyes, which had been shooting daggers of pure venom, were now wide, unblinking, fixed on the letter in my hand as if it were a cobra about to strike. It was the look of someone who had just watched their entire worldview, their entire self-conception as the superior sibling, the chosen one, get nuked from orbit. She saw the scholarship letter. She'd heard Dr. Webb. She understood. This wasn't just an associate's degree from a community college anymore. This was a full ride to a respected university, a validation from the outside world that had nothing to do with family money or manipulation. This was me, Maya, the failure, the weak one, soaring past her on wings she'd unknowingly helped me forge in the fires of her own cruelty. Sophie finally understood. I hadn't just been surviving, I'd been strategizing. I hadn't just been enduring, I'd been learning. While she was busy plotting her petty cons and burning bridges, I'd been quietly, diligently building my own. She'd thought this was a sprint, a quick grab for cash and status. She was only now realizing I'd been playing the long game all along, patiently laying the groundwork for a real future, a secure future, a future she could no longer touch, no longer taint. Her expression wasn't just shock. It was the dawning, horrifying realization of her own profound, irreversible obsolescence in my life's narrative. She had burned her own future to the ground and in doing so had inadvertently cleared the path for mine to rise. The silence from her was the loudest, most satisfying victory speech I could have ever imagined. Years. They unspooled like thread, each one woven with hard work, late nights, and the quiet satisfaction of building a life on solid ground. I'd graduated from State University with honors, the President's Achievement Scholarship, a constant source of both relief and motivation. I'd worked for a couple of years in healthcare administration, learning the system from the inside, my business degree proving surprisingly versatile. But the desire to be on the front lines to make a more direct impact had solidified into a new, more audacious dream: medicine. It felt like a calling I could no longer ignore. So, more exams, more applications, more holding my breath. Then, one crisp autumn afternoon, about 6 years after that chaotic community college graduation, I was browse a local art fair when I heard a familiar voice. Maya Chen. Is that really you? My star pupil from Metro? I turned, a smile instantly lighting my face. Dr. Webb, it's so good to see you. What are you doing here? He looked a bit older, a bit grayer, but his eyes still held that same spark of keen intelligence and kindness. Just enjoying my retirement, Maya, he chuckled, but always delighted to bump into success stories. And I heard the biggest news of all about you recently from Dean Abernathy. He still calls me with updates on his favorites, you know. He told me you finally got in. My heart did a little flip. Oh, yes. The letter just came last week. It still feels a bit unreal. Unreal? Dr. Webb scoffed gently. My dear, it was inevitable. You have the sharpest mind and the biggest heart I've encountered in 30 years of teaching. So, tell me, where are you headed? What heights are you conquering next? Johns Hopkins, I said, a thrill still shooting through me at the words. For medicine! Johns Hopkins. His eyes widened with genuine admiration. Outstanding, truly. Just then, my gaze drifted past Dr. Webb's shoulder. And there, like a bad penny you can't quite get rid of, was Sophie. She was a few stalls down, haggling over the price of some cheap ceramic bird looking harried and distinctly less polished than I remembered. She hadn't seen us yet. Dr. Webb, however, followed my gaze, his smile tightening almost imperceptibly as he recognized her. He then turned back to me, his voice clear and carrying just enough for an attentive listener to overhear. Well, congratulations on your acceptance to medical school, Dr. Chen. He deliberately used the honorific, a knowing twinkle in his eye. The world desperately needs more physicians with your integrity and compassion. At that exact moment, Sophie looked up. Her eyes met mine, then flicked to Dr. Webb, then back to me, registering his words, the weight of Dr. Chen, the implied future. Her face didn't just fall, it seemed to implode. The ceramic bird slipped from her fingers and shattered on the pavement, a perfect, almost comical metaphor for her expression. She just stared, mouth agape, as Dr. Webb shook my hand warmly, oblivious, or perhaps perfectly aware, of the small drama unfolding behind me. That image of her, frozen amidst the wreckage of a cheap trinket and her own permanently derailed ambitions, was a stinger indeed. Years continued to pass, a swift current carrying me forward. After graduating from State University, then Johns Hopkins with my MD, I threw myself into the grueling world of residency. And now, 2 years into that residency at a major city hospital, I was chief resident. It was exhausting, demanding, and the most rewarding work I'd ever done. Sophie, meanwhile, was managing a 24-hour fast food franchise off the interstate. I knew this because she still texted, usually when her rent was late or a new unforeseen emergency had befallen her. Her texts were a masterclass in wheedling, guilt-tripping, and casual emotional blackmail. Hey, Dr. Maya, one might read, the winky face a tiny digital insult. Fancy. So listen, my new rescue chihuahua, Princess Consuela Banana Hammock III, needs like diamond-encrusted paw cures. Vet says $1,500. Any chance you can help her poor, struggling sis out? Am desperate. Will pay you back, promise? XOXO. My internal eye roll could have generated renewable energy. Princess Consuela? Seriously? My usual reply was polite, brief, and non-committal, always suggesting resources far removed from my bank account. I'd learned that some people don't change, they just find new angles for the same old cons. The bitterness was still there in her, a hard little kernel she nursed. But it was her bitterness, her problem, no longer mine. Some bridges, I'd come to understand, aren't meant to be rebuilt. They're meant to stay burned. The smoke, a permanent reminder of the fire you escaped. Mom, surprisingly, had found her own quiet path to a new normal. My framed chief resident certificate, alongside my state university and Johns Hopkins diplomas, now hung in the living room. They look so nice there, Maya, she'd said to me once, her voice thick with an emotion I hadn't heard from her in years, unadulterated pride. Much better than, well, you know. She didn't need to finish the sentence. We both knew she meant the space where Sophie's fake pregnancy announcement, and later, her rescinded Winchester acceptance letter, used to be taped. Monuments to a future that never was. It wasn't forgiveness, not entirely, and our relationship was still a work in progress, but it was a start. Acknowledgement. Maybe even a quiet apology etched in the space she made for my successes. Some sisters, I've learned, deserve second chances, forgiveness, and the unwavering support of family. They deserve to be lifted up, cherished, and believed in. Others deserve front row seats to your success. A clear, unobstructed view of everything they tried to destroy, now thriving in spite of them. And a lifetime supply of ceramic birds to shatter. It's not about revenge. It's about the beautiful, unassailable truth that living well and on your own damn terms is truly the best and most satisfying kind of happily ever after.